Hey guys! With its 9th episode, Outlander, Blood of My Blood makes a decisive turn into both romance and rebellion. The installment titled Braemar, aired September 26, 2025, combines high-stakes political drama with intimate betrayals, creating one of the most tense and layered episodes of the prequel so far. The show continues to follow the model of Outlander, weaving personal love stories into sweeping historical backdrops, but Braemar also sharpens the conflicts introduced earlier this season. If Episode 8 tested its characters with humiliations and near-impossible choices, then Episode 9 throws them into a broader web of danger, where personal matters collide with history itself. At the annual hunting event at Braemar Castle, the clans converge, and with them, secrets, betrayals, and declarations that will change the Highlands forever. Before diving into Braemar, it's important to note how heavily Episode 8 hangs over this chapter. Ellen's forced examination remains a fresh wound, not just for her but for the audience. That scene underlined the vulnerability of women in 18th century Scotland, treated as property whose purity had to be certified. Julia's intervention to protect Ellen was both clever and heartbreaking, cementing the bond between the two women and foreshadowing their future alliance. This trauma lingers into Braemar. Ellen enters the episode no longer a passive figure at the mercy of her brothers and the Grants, but a woman increasingly aware of her own strength. Julia, meanwhile, emerges as a Claire-like figure, using both intelligence and compassion to protect others. Their trajectories remain central to the episode. The setting of Episode 9 is historically significant, the Earl of Mar's hunting event at Braemar Castle. In reality, this was where the Jacobite Rising of 1715 began, with the raising of the Stuart standard. The show wisely positions all its key players at this gathering, creating a pressure cooker environment where political allegiances and personal vendettas intersect. The Earl's proclamation, essentially a call to rebellion, sets the clans on edge. For characters like Colin Mackenzie, Simon Fraser, and the Grants, politics are never separate from family honor and survival. For Brian, Ellen, Julia, and Henry, the rebellion provides both cover and chaos, creating opportunities but also grave risks. Ellen's storyline in Braemar revolves around the tightening noose of her impending marriage to Malcolm Grant. Malcolm has been portrayed as one of the more sympathetic figures among the suitors, kind, respectful, even reluctant about the cruel examination of Episode 8. Yet his uncle's menacing warning to Ellen, "If ye break my nephew's heart, I'll rip your own from your chest," reminds us that marriage in this world is not about individual affection, but family power. This scene crystallizes Ellen's dilemma. On one hand, Malcolm is decent. On the other, his family is ruthless. To break away from him for Brian is to risk not only her own safety, but Brian's life. Still, Ellen's pride during the examination and her continued longing for Brian make it clear that she cannot submit forever. The Grants' threats raise the stakes, ensuring that any escape she attempts will have devastating consequences. Brian's role in Braemar is agonizing. He knows Ellen is being pushed toward Malcolm, yet he remains powerless in the face of clan politics. Their stolen glances and brief encounters during the hunting event highlight both their passion and their despair. One of the episode's most striking moments comes when Mrs. Fitz warns Ellen that one of you will be dead. The line works both, literally and metaphorically. If Ellen chooses Brian, she risks his life. If she surrenders to Malcolm, something in her will die. The hand-fasting cloth Brian carries, given by Mrs. Fitz, becomes a haunting symbol of this impossible choice. Episode 9 suggests that Brian may even consider stepping aside for Ellen's safety, a heartbreaking echo of sacrifices Jamie Fraser would later make for Claire. Ellen's tears in the final scene leave viewers wondering, is she grieving a love she can never claim, or steeling herself for a desperate escape? While Ellen and Brian's romance remains trapped in political snares, Julia and Henry's storyline delivers both reunion and heartbreak. Their brief meeting in Episode 8 was emotional but uncertain, with Henry nearly unable to believe Julia was alive. In Braemar, the two finally speak more openly, but their circumstances complicate everything. Julia is now Simon Fraser's wife and the mother of William. To Henry, who has lived with grief and guilt for years, this revelation is nearly unbearable. His mental health, already fragile, teeters on collapse as he tries to reconcile his love for Julia with the reality of her new life. The episode captures this tension beautifully. Henry's desperate plea, "Might I ask of you one thing?" I don't want to waste time. I want you to be my lady. Shows a man clinging to hope, while Julia's pained silence reflects the impossibility of their situation. Their relationship, once the heart of youthful passion, is now tangled in duty, honor, and survival. Still, Julia proves resourceful. Her ability to use her past as a nurse to navigate crises and her protective instinct toward Ellen make her indispensable. She is no longer simply Henry's lost love. She is a power in her own right. Lord Tovat, who has often provided moments of irritation rather than intrigue, takes on a more sinister role in episode 9. Returning from treatment with the realization that he has no real illness, he turns his paranoia inward, accusing his household of poisoning him. His suspicions first target Brian's mother, but when Julia defends her, he redirects his venom toward Julia herself. This subplot adds a new layer of danger. Julia, already under strain from Henry's return and Ellen's crisis, now faces threats from within her household. Tovat's menace is less physical than psychological, but it destabilizes the fragile equilibrium of the Fraser home. It also underscores the precarious position of women, who, no matter how intelligent or resourceful, could be undone by the whims of powerful men. The episode doesn't neglect the wider political tensions. A heated confrontation between Colum Mackenzie and Dougal hints at their differing loyalties regarding the Jacobite cause. Colum's suspicion, "What are you hiding from me?" suggests that Dougal may already be aligning with the Earl of Mar. This subplot mirrors the central theme of Braemar, hidden allegiances. Just as Ellen conceals her love for Brian and Julia conceals her past with Henry, the clans conceal their political loyalties. Secrets here are not merely personal, they have the power to ignite wars. By placing the characters at the Braemar gathering, the show ties intimate storylines to seismic historical events. The Earl of Mar's proclamation doesn't just set the stage for rebellion, it also serves as a metaphor. Just as the Highlands are about to erupt into chaos, so too are the lives of Ellen, Brian, Julia, and Henry. For viewers familiar with history, the Jacobite Rising of 1715 is doomed to fail. This historical inevitability adds an undercurrent of tragedy to the episode. The characters' plans to escape, reunite, or marry are being forged in the shadow of a rebellion that will upend everything. Episode 9. Braemar is one of the strongest entries of Blood of My Blood so far. It skillfully balances personal drama with historical momentum, making the characters' choices feel both intimate and epic. Ellen emerges as a figure of resilience, caught between love and duty. Brian faces the torment of watching the woman he loves slip away. Julia navigates the razor's edge between two lives, Henry's passion and Simon Fraser's household. Henry struggles with heartbreak and mental collapse, desperate to reclaim a past that may be gone forever. And in the background, the Jacobite Rising brews, threatening to engulf them all. If Episode 8 was about humiliation and survival, Episode 9 is about confrontation and decision. With only a handful of episodes left, Blood of My Blood positions its characters on the cusp of rebellion, heartbreak, and irrevocable change. The stage is set not only for the personal tragedies of its protagonists, but also for the grand, tragic sweep of history. Another fascinating element of Braemar is the way it interrogates masculine honor and pride. The Mackenzie brothers, Malcolm Grant, and even Henry all struggle under the weight of societal expectations of men in the Highlands. For the Mackenzies, Ellen's reputation is not just her own, it reflects on their entire clan. Malcolm wants Ellen not only as a wife, but also as a symbol of legitimacy and stability. And Henry, in his fragile state, yearns to reclaim Julia not just for love, but as proof that he has not failed completely. The episode suggests that men's obsession with honor often comes at women's expense, leaving characters like Ellen and Julia to endure the consequences. The visual storytelling of the episode also deserves mention. The hunting grounds at Braemar, lush and expansive, contrast sharply with the suffocating interiors where Ellen endured her examination. This shift in setting underscores the widening scope of the narrative. No longer confined to private chambers and castle walls, the drama now unfolds against the backdrop of Scotland itself. Yet even in the open air, the characters are trapped by obligations and suspicions, reminding us that freedom is never as simple as running away into the forest. Episode 9 also deepens the theme of generational conflict. Simon Fraser's watchful eye on Julia and his insistence on her duty to his household reveal the older generation's iron grip on the younger. Similarly, Colum and Dougal's disagreements about the Jacobite cause represent the clash between tradition and ambition. Brian and Ellen's romance, forbidden by both their families, is yet another example of youth challenging the older generation's authority. In each case, the younger characters dream of love or freedom, while the elders demand loyalty to clan and crown. The role of women's solidarity becomes more pronounced in Braemar. Ellen, Julia, Mrs. Fitz, and even Davina Porter occupy a precarious world where men decide their fates, yet they find ways to support each other in small but meaningful ways. Julia's defense of Brian's mother against Lord Tovat's paranoia, Mrs. Fitz's counsel to Brian, and Ellen's unflinching gaze during her humiliation all illustrate different forms of resilience. These moments highlight the quiet strength of women, a counterbalance to the bluster and violence of the men. What also makes this episode compelling is the sense of foreshadowing. Viewers familiar with the Jacobite Rising of 1715 know that the rebellion will end in failure, but the characters do not. Every plan to escape, every secret meeting, every whispered vow between lovers feels charged with impending tragedy. In this way, the show mirrors Outlander's ability to blend personal stakes with historical inevitability, creating suspense even when the outcome is known. The audience watches with dread, knowing that history will not be kind to these dreamers. Finally, Braemar highlights the fragility of happiness in a world defined by duty and conflict. Julia and Henry's reunion, long awaited and deeply moving, is immediately overshadowed by the impossibility of their situation. Ellen and Brian's love, passionate and true, remains doomed by politics and clan loyalty. Even Malcolm Grant, decent though he may be, is trapped by the expectations of his family. The episode leaves us with the sense that in this turbulent era, love can be a refuge but never a guarantee. And as the Jacobite standard rises, we realize that heartbreak, betrayal, and sacrifice will only deepen in the episodes to come.